What's going on? Kevin Cole here. Sorry, slightly late jumping on the mic there. Had to repost, not retweet, reposting. So let's get it right here. Let's get the nomenclature right. Reposting my notification that I'm jumping on YouTube. For those of you who are not on the YouTube, let's get up on it. YouTube channel for Unexpected Points. You can drop questions in the comments, all that sort of stuff on there if you want me to address anything in particular during the show. You get notifications, all that sort of good stuff there. Speaking of reposting, I hit, because it's the NFL season, I hit whatever sort of threshold is necessary for Elon Musk to cut checks to us in the Twitter Blue contingent. Threshold for impressions. Because I don't tweet that much during the off season. I'm not threading. I refuse to thread and to do farming for impression farming out there on the Twitter streets. Oh, sorry, X streets. I got to start naming correctly because I'm officially an employee now of of X. Now that I hit whatever threshold it was, they cut me a cool $53 check recently, even though I just signed up. Now maybe that's a back payment in there too. So I mean, hey, if I can even get my my Twitter Blue fees paid for via Elon, I'll take it. But I don't think you're not going to see, like, I know the incentive here is that I'll be on Twitter. I'm sorry, X. God, sorry, Elon. I keep on messing up here. Don't suspend my account and stop my checks coming in here. That I'll just be on there trying to impression farm, but a bit more now that that sweet X money is coming in. But no, not going to happen. Too bored. And I just like putting things in this podcast and on the site in the advanced reviews, much more, because hey, you explain it a bit better. Keep it to the privileged few, I like to say. All right, enough nonsense at the beginning of this thing. Give a little time for some people maybe to jump on here, and let's get into the game reviews. So we're going to start with Sunday night. Then I'll just kind of go a little bit more in chronological order. London, early window, late window. Take any questions anyone may have in the comments. If you want to drop anything in there, if you have questions about a particular game, I'll try to view those comments from time to time. I don't like to have it, constantly be viewing it, or then it kind of interrupts my flow here, as this is a solo production, which doesn't really allow me to spend any time looking at other stuff while I'm doing this and still keep the numbers coming. Okay, so as part of this review, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to throw up my I guess throw up, maybe is that the right word. I'm gonna toss up here my advanced reviews on the screen so you can see them, even if it's maybe it's not, maybe I need to make it even bigger. I guess it's as big as it gets. That for you to see the different numbers. This advanced review for Sunday Night Football I made free to the public, so all the information is there. It gives you a little taste of what's available for all the different games. I also had a little strategic partnership with Betting Life, which is part of Fantasy Life, part of the Matthew Berry empire that he's building outside of, now that he's no longer an ESPN dude. Matthew Freeman's my guy, works over there. He's going to be posting some of the unexpected points content, really some advanced reviews, just tossing a couple of those onto the site that people can check out. And then, well, we'll see if it ends up flowing through as far as anyone coming from the newsletter and actually signing up for my stuff. All right, but for now, free here, advanced review, Sunday Night Football. Let's start here with Bills Giants. Sloppy game, ugly game, right? It was, I guess it was what, 6-0 at half. And of course, we'll break down what happened at the end of the half, all that sort of stuff. Ended up being 14-9. Now, the way to think about this, and I have it, the Bills still being the better team here by about 4 points versus the 5-point actual point differential. That may seem weird when we're like game watching and we have our game watching caps on and we say, well, the Giants had the ball on the 1 yard line twice and got 0 points. Therefore, we take whatever the final score is and we mix in some other stuff, and then boom, we get what we want there. Well, this isn't quite how it works according to my adjusted scores. My adjusted scores give more credit to teams For success rate, having a higher success rate, and the Bills' success rate in this game was about 5% better than the Giants. They were 47.6 versus 42.9. So there's that there. They were more successful on a play-by-play basis. They were also like trying to actually do something a bit more as far as down the field is concerned. I look at expected EPA based upon target locations and what you expect the like completion rate to be for these different targeted locations. So it gives teams more credits for at least trying to do something. And I'll just quickly throw on the screen here the target distribution for Tyrod Taylor in this one. It's just a bunch of underneath stuff. So they generated some EPA. They were successful doing this here, but they weren't really taking any shots. I mean, they had one total chuck it up ball here that was 47 yards downfield. They had another that's 35 and maybe 25 that are on the sideline, another that was 20 plus on the other sideline. But again, sideline throws have low catch rates generally. It's a low risk, lower reward sort of situation when you throw it to the sideline. Less likely to get intercepted, but you're less likely to complete it. Other than that, they had one pass that was about 11 yards downfield, and everything else is like this 5 yards downfield, just spamming. Barely anything going down further than that. So a decent, completion rate, an okay success rate for Taylor throwing the ball, but just a lot of Darren Waller and Wan'Dale Robinson underneath where there's just low upside in that sort of offense. So again, I give the Bills more credit saying if we look at the fundamentals of how these two teams played, not only did the Bills have like a lot worse turnover luck in this one. Luck is one thing. I mean, interception and a fumble after reception is kind of bad luck. It just doesn't happen that often. Not only were they worse in that category by about 8.5 expected points. So that makes a huge difference, but they were like giving their offense at least had a chance to do something more if they could have completed a few more passes. Whereas the Giants just weren't really even running an offense that had a chance to do that much in this game. So that's part of it. But it is true that the Giants technically made it into the red zone 5 different times, and then they ended with 9 points. So that's pretty bad. But I'd also say that the Bills should have scored a bunch more points. I mean, the adjusted score generally I have is 22-18. So what is that? An additional 8 points for the Bills and an additional 9 points for the Giants. So it just grosses up everything there. Both teams should have scored more, but the Bills kind of fundamentally still had the better offense. Let's talk about the two plays from the 1 yard line. So Daboll had the demonstrative reaction on the sideline after the first one where Taylor clearly checked into a run play. So this is 14 seconds left. It was the biggest loss in expected points in this one because not only do you have a chance to kick the field goal if you would have thrown a pass, but you probably have another pass attempt also. So you're probably getting like 2 tries if you pass the ball, plus a field goal, maybe even 3 tries plus a field goal attempt. I don't know. That could be tough, but you are right there on the 1 yard line. So it's possible you get 2-3 tries at the end zone plus a field goal attempt. So that explains why on 1st and 1 first and goal from the 1 with 14 seconds left, the expected points is 5.2. It's pretty high. So getting a blank 0 on that one is really, really damaging. So Taylor definitely checked into the running play by touching his helmet. The question now is, did Daboll tell him like immediately before that play, hey, I know there's a run check on this, but we're passing the ball here? Daboll did have some post-game comments on this, and it kind of depends on how you want to interpret those post-game comments, because he said that this is not a direct quote, but this is from Jordan Raanan, who's the Giants beat reporter, what he typed out, at least based upon the press conference. His tweet says, his post, Elon, says, Brian Daboll said Tyrod Taylor alerted to a run on the final play of the first half. We all knew that. Said he communicated to his quarterback to pass in that situation. Now, communicated to his quarterback, I would want a little bit more details. Like, was it immediately before the play? If it was immediately before the play, I have no problem with Daboll kind of throwing Taylor under the bus here, as people are saying. I don't even think it is a bus under throwing necessarily, because like if he told him, hey, don't chuck into a run play, and then 5 seconds later he checks into a run play, toss away. Now, if he told him at the beginning of the drive, although even telling someone at the beginning of the drive, like, how do you know you're going to get that specific situation? If he's just like, oh, we have conversations normally where Taylor knows not to do it in those situations, well, that gets a little bit more questionable. And I think Dable's got to take more of the blame on this one and not put the blame squarely on Taylor like he is in this one. Either way, they come away with 0 points, 5.2 expected points lost, 12.4 win probability lost on that play. And then we get to the end of the game. The other one at the end of the game, the estimation by the NFL Faster crew over there, the NFL Universe crew for their model, the win probability model was about a 52% win probability going into the play. That sounds about right. I mean, if we think about it, a 2-point conversion is normally somewhere in the mid 40s, depending upon the offense. So we get a yard closer. We don't have the greatest offense with Taylor, all this sort of stuff. I think 52% sounds pretty close, maybe a little bit higher on that one. And of course, they don't convert. So they go from 52% win probability to 0 after that play. Clear hold on the play or pass interference, depending upon, I mean, the hold's kind of initiated before the pass was even thrown, and then there was pass interference afterwards. So either call could have been appropriate on there. I will say, and this might be too galaxy braining this sort of situation, but you think about it from a game theory perspective. It's 1st and goal at the 1. If you commit a penalty and you're on the defense, a pass interference or a hold, whatever, worst case scenario is you run it back. 1st and goal from the 1 play to go. 0 seconds on the clock. Worst case scenario, right? So if I were a defensive coordinator in that situation, I would say, unless you're certain that it's going to be an incomplete pass at the catch point, and you're right there, or you can knock it down, you're 100% certain, don't pass interfere, but you might want to just like hold on every play, just initially. And it's just hope that one time they don't call it, right? Just hope they don't call it one time. Sure, you're going to have some bad situations where there would have been an incomplete pass or it would have been a sack or something would have happened if you didn't hold, and maybe you get the call there and blah, blah, blah. But still, like, you're in this situation where you can do it on every play. That kind of opens up, if that's the game theory optimal strategy on defense, then on offense, you might want to say to yourself, well, you know what? Maybe the game theory optimal play here is just to run the ball. You got one play either way. The ability for the defense just to commit another foul on the run play is pretty hard. I mean, they can do defensive holding and like just grab an offensive lineman and pull them out of the way. So they could do something like that, and maybe they should. So maybe that's like another layer to this game theory optimization. But I think generally, maybe the 52% kind of overvalues the Giants' chance of scoring here because the defense can just foul. Just foul, foul, foul. And, the Bills are at home. And if you're a referee, even if you're the most unbiased referee possible, like, how many times are you going to throw the flag in a row when you just threw a pass interference to get them down to the 1 yard line? And that pass interference to get them down to the 1 yard was maybe a little bit more questionable. I think it was pass interference, but it was definitely more questionable than grabbing the jersey and pulling down on the last play. So, it's a tougher spot for the Giants in that situation than some might think, because the defense has this advantage of just being able to foul. There's no like running the clock advantage there, because we're already at 0 seconds that you could also say the defense could try to use with fouling, although that's been corrected somewhat in the rule book. But we still haven't corrected the ability for the defense to just play this game out and be like, we're not going to give you an open pass on this last play, no matter what. But again, that was the 4th most impactful play by expected points. So if you look at the expected points on these 2 plays combined, the 2 failures at the end of half, it's 9.3 expected points. So that's a pretty massive number. Now, the thing is, the Bills also had 2 big negative plays. The Gabe Davis fumble was 4.4 expected points. Interception targeting Dawson Knox at about 2:30 left in the first quarter was 4.2 expected points. That was a big one because it was on 1st and 10 also on that one as a tipped pass that went up and was caught. So that bad luck maybe counterweights some of the bad luck for the Giants as far as those end of play situations is concerned. Overall, Bills' offensive efficiency was still actually about 50th percentile, despite the fact that they couldn't, despite the fact they had those big turnovers in the passing game. They ran the ball pretty well. 0 design runs for Josh Allen. So that's something interesting. I mean, they're probably trying to keep him healthy. He got a little banged up in this one still. Scrambling, obviously, he's still doing in his insane sort of way. He got tossed down on the ground on a kind of a BS, but I think a hard call to not make because of the way he fell down. Roughing the passer, I don't know. Who knows? It could be one of these situations where he comes out of the game and figures out he has a concussion later. So he did get banged up a bit, and he's not running as much, which is interesting, especially for the fantasy football heads out there. Overall, positive 0.1 EPA per play for Josh Allen. So, okay. Taylor was basically flat. Not really exciting numbers for either guy. Not a lot of air yard EPA for either guy. ADOT 6.9 yards for Taylor, 8.8 for Allen. So now the Bills get to 4-2. They look kind of bad here, but the 49ers also look kind of bad. So at the end of this week, I haven't run the numbers yet, but I have a feeling the Bills might still end up being number 1 in my power rankings. And, people aren't going to like that, but they'll like it more so than if they would have lost this game. And been 3-3, and then I would have had to hear like how I have them number 1 in my power rankings based upon that. All right, let's go to now the early window. We'll start in London, Tennessee, the documented home team for this one. Although I think I mentioned that my numbers like Tennessee a little bit as far as betting is concerned. It seemed like everyone on the planet was on the Ravens, betting on the Ravens in this game because there were so many complaints about how the fact that the Titans could have covered at the end if they went for the touchdown rather than the field goal. They had first and goal from inside the 10, I think, and didn't end up getting a touchdown out there at the end. Instead, kicked the field goal, I think, on third down, which is, it's kind of a wild concept there. I'm not sure if that put them in a better position or not. And then, tried to get the onside kick afterwards there. So, yeah, I get it. But I also said that I wouldn't necessarily bet on the Titans because I didn't like the fact that they didn't come over to London until so late versus the Ravens, who had been there for multiple days and really had been able to acclimate themselves a little bit better. But why do my numbers say that this game was actually a little bit tighter than the 8 points? I have it as a 4-point differential on this one, which sounds surprising because everyone probably thinks the Ravens crushed them by even more than that. Well, success rates were pretty similar. And it was really just a third down sort of situation. So I'll go back. I know I harp on this constantly to a nauseating degree, but like third downs, converting or not converting, makes such a massive difference. And we also have this perception built in when a team converts third downs and keeps on going and extends drives and gets more plays and more opportunities to accumulate points. We tend to give like a little bit too much credit for being able to convert these third downs, or a little bit too much blame for when it doesn't happen. Teams are generally within a pretty small delta when it comes to converting third downs or not. There are some teams that are really, really good or really, really bad, but normally it aligns with kind of the overall offensive strength of the teams. And in this particular game, from a success rate standpoint, the overall offenses were pretty equal. It's just Titans 1 for 9 on third down. Okay. Those are just drive killers, especially when you're a team that likes to run the ball. You got to convert those third downs. These were not difficult third downs. They were 0 for 4 on third downs where they have 5 or fewer yards to go. We're talking about a 3rd and 1, a 3rd and 2, a 3rd and 4. I think it's 2 3rd and 2s and a 3rd and 4. I mean, you're just 0 for on those. Hugely, hugely negative for the Titans on that one. And that's why the Ravens outperformed them by about 10 expected points on these 3rd and 4th down, late down, high leverage situations. Those look to us like, Lamar Jackson making plays, which is part of it. He is good at making plays. He's not extraordinary on 3rd and 4th down, but he's good at scrambling, making plays. And the Titans just inability on an extended timeline out to infinity to be able to make these plays. But the reality is, hey, it goes up or down a little bit in this one. Also 2.6 EPA advantage on special teams for the Ravens. Tucker didn't really have any difficult kicks, but he was 6 of 6. on his field goals. And there was a 70-yard punt return by Devin Duvernay. And there was also a muffed punt that was recovered by the Ravens. So the Ravens got, a lot of different advantages there too. Again, that's all kind of built into our perception when we're watching the end of the game saying, how could this possibly be so close? Well, those are pretty high variance types of plays when it comes to the punt return and the muffed punt that went against the Titans that just won't happen on a week in and week out basis. If you look at the top plays of the game, I mean, Jackson did have an interception for 4.5 expected points. That was pretty negative. They did have a big play offensively for the Titans that maybe you could say was pretty fluky, a Derrick Henry 63-yard run. They did have a 48-yard screen play or swing. I don't know if it was a swing or a screen to Tyjae Spears, to the running back Tyjae Spears, when Malik Willis came into the game. That was 48 yards, and it was also in a situation where the win probability was very low. 2 minutes remaining, down by 9 points for the Titans. So I adjust out some of that when the win probability is low, but not a ton of that when the win probability is low. Jackson's numbers were also hurt by a rushing attempt. 3rd and 1 from the 1 yard line, took a -4 on that. They had to end up kicking the field goal. That was 2.7 expected points lost on that one. Tannehill also took a bunch of sacks. So if you take the combined sack loss, and this is like Willis was really trying to prove the sacks are a quarterback stat by just coming in there and taking, I think it was 3 or 4 sacks when he dropped back like 12 times. 9.3 EPA lost on sacks for the Titans. So Tannehill has a tendency to hold the ball too long and take sacks, and especially in that play action offense. Willis really has a tendency. Like Willis, when he goes back to pass, I'm like, how is he even going to accomplish anything down the field? It looks so bad. So yeah, bad there, and didn't really give their team a chance to win that much at all in that regard. And Jackson, again, it's one of those things where I see a lot of praise for Lamar Jackson online. I think the offense was doing nothing. They were very bad running the ball outside of Lamar Jackson. And even again, Lamar Jackson had that kind of run on the 1 yard line that didn't end up doing well. So they did have a 70th percentile drop back passing game in this one, despite the most negative play of the game being Lamar Jackson interception, and another really negative play being the run play. But overall, 0.018 EPA per play. I mean, it's kind of like good, elite-ish sort of number, but not really an MVP sort of number. That's how I would look at it. And again, the mistakes there without enough counterbalancing for the rushing. Now, he did produce a decent amount of like pass EPA outside of the mistake. So that's something that hadn't really happened in the past for these last games. So the offense looked a little bit better there. But I don't know, man. I know people complain about the Ravens running too much near the goal line, but I wanted to see actually more just Lamar Jackson runs. I still think we need more Lamar Jackson running in this game. And I know they don't want him getting injured. I know it's a new offensive philosophy. I know all of that sort of stuff, but I don't know. We got to do something. My prediction is it's going to be Will Levis time coming out of the bye over the next week. The Titans are taking the bye post-London. Malik Willis is just not it. I'm sorry. I know he actually had okay efficiency in this one based upon that screen pass and some scrambling around that he's doing. But no, the guy, like, he's in his second year and he still looks as lost as ever when it comes to taking sacks and being able to execute the offense. Levis hasn't been active so far this year. He's been the emergency quarterback so far. I know he had some injury stuff in the preseason camp, that sort of stuff. Hopefully it's been resolved. And I just think you need to start Levis now. Plus, it gives you a window as to what you need to do at quarterback next year. I mean, you didn't invest a ton in them. I know people view quarterback picks very differently from how they view any other picks. And they think if you traded up to get a guy at the top of the second round, that's some sort of monster commitment. I don't know. I mean, guys bust. Positional players, non-quarterbacks bust all the time at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. Get him in there, see what he can do. Tannehill has got the 7th worst efficiency by my adjusted efficiency metric going into the week, and then he had another negative performance here. I don't really see an avenue to trading him anywhere, just like I don't see an avenue to trading Cousins anywhere. But this is the final year, the final non-void year of his contract. So I think you keep him there to bring him back potentially if Levis falls on his face or if he gets injured again. So you keep him around, you pay him the money that you already made the contract. You kind of already made your bed. You gotta lie in it now. But you definitely give Levis a chance now. Figure out what you have, so then you can decide if you want to move on to someone else next year. Because I don't think Willis is it. All right, let's go ahead and get to Atlanta versus Washington. This is weird. Just lots of games this week where the actual and the adjusted scores are flipped. I think it's just because a lot of games are ugly, basically. So then turnovers and third down advantages had huge effects on games that the success rates were kind of just generally meh. And that's what we had in this game. So the Commanders, they won the game by 8 points, but they had a lower success rate. They really just took advantage of third and fourth downs and turnovers in this one. Those are the big thing. The Falcons couldn't run the ball also, which was very damaging. 18% success rate on their design runs, 8% for Bijan Robinson. Not good for Bijan Robinson in that one. They were losing about a quarter point of EPA per rushing attempt. What's weird is the passing game actually wasn't that bad. I think there's an impression, probably if you watch Red Zone like me, where every time they cut to the Falcons, it seemed like Desmond Ridder was throwing an interception, and then they would cut to Arthur Smith on the sideline with this pained look on his face. So maybe he had enough pained looks in this one to make a move at quarterback. But, overall, the passing offense wasn't that bad. It was only slightly negative by EPA, about equal to what the Commanders had done with this one, and a much higher success rate. It's just they had these mistakes. If you look at the interceptions, 5.9 expected points lost to targeting Van Jefferson, another 4.9 targeting Drake London, and that was from the 7-yard line. That was right in there in the end zone that I think we all saw on Red Zone at least. And then another one from the Washington 34-yard line, 3rd and 1, an interception targeting Bijan Robinson. There was another 4th down play where Ridder tried to get the ball to Bijan that was 3 EPA lost on a 4th and 3. And I don't know, this is the Washington 48, where Ridder is like, you just knew almost immediately when you saw Bijan out. I think he was in the slot or he was out wide, like in a bunch sort of formation. You knew that the wide receiver was going to clear out and Bijan was gonna cut out, and they were going to try to hit him there. Like, you knew it, I knew it, the defender knew it, and the defender, they were playing. I'm not sure if they were playing zone, but whoever was the outside corner on that one was just ready to jump it. He was ready to jump it and knock it down for an easy incompletion. There were guys open on the other side of the field, but Ridder was just, locked in on that one. And it did not seem like Arthur Smith was very pleased with that effort also. But like I said, outside of that, he actually had some plays. They actually did make some plays down the field, which ended up being that Ridder had basically flat EPA on 54 plays. So he had to throw the ball a lot, drop back a lot in this one. Just massive negatives, which offset the positives in the passing game, and then also a little bit of juice that he had scrambling the ball. Howell, interesting week for him in this one. He had to have taken a sack. Let me see, because he's our sack master, of course. Sorry about this. A little bit of a delay here. No turnovers though, so that was good. That was good for him, because that's not something that happens typically for him. So no interceptions, 3 touchdowns, which is going to look pretty good, but 5 sacks. Jesus Lord, 5 sacks for 30 yards. So like, it was 6.6 yards per attempt, only 151 yards on 23 attempts. Okay, you net out the 30 yards, you add in an additional 5 dropbacks there. We're up to 121 yards on 28 dropbacks. So let's do some quick math there. That's 4.3 yards. Not good at all. So a bad game for Howe, but I think the impression will be much, much different on this one, just because Ridder, with the mistakes and the failure on 4th down, is just really going to look bad, especially for those of us who watched on Red Zone, like me. All right. Cleveland, San Francisco, another one where the score flips, but it's pretty close. I mean, the adjusted score is basically what the score would have been if they would have hit the field goal there at the end. But the overall results for the Niners are pretty bad, because They were 9.5 point favorites going into this game. 9.5 point favorites. Pretty good. They lost on the last second field goal miss. Very makeable field goal. I think it was from 41 yards out. Weather conditions weren't ideal. Yeah, Shanahan could have tried to pick up a few more yards. I don't care about it that much at the end of the game. Plus, Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey were knocked out of the game. I'm not sure which one is worse. I know McCaffrey attempted to come back multiple times and then was forced out. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. At the very least, I think the 49ers have to throttle down McCaffrey's usage. He was on pace for more than 400 touches going into this game. And that's just too many. I'm sorry. That's too many touches here. There's a weird back and forth here where the Browns offense was also really, really bad. Turnovers were a big problem for PJ Walker. I've seen this thing where they're like, PJ Walker wins. I mean, PJ Walker was kind of just like there. He was there at quarterback. Did he win? I don't know. Even when he didn't turn the ball over, he had 1.4 passing EPA on non-interception pass attempt. So he barely derived any value even when he wasn't being intercepted. Then he had a 15.4 EPA lost to interceptions and sacks, including some awful ones. I mean, 2nd down and 4. It's kind of a weird down and distance from the 43-yard line. 7.4 EPA lost on that interception, another 5.1 on another interception. So not good at all. They did have some big plays, but it was mostly, it seemed like to me, Amari Cooper doing his thing on the 58-yard gain that they had there than PJ Walker doing anything special. Did convert a 4th and 4. So that was huge. That was pretty big and a good play by Walker there, which had a big effect on the score result here. Amari Cooper also had another 26-yard catch. So I think he was kind of more the MVP of this one than giving any credit. I mean, MVP offensively. Obviously, the defense is really the MVP for the Browns, keeping the 49ers to a 35% success rate, 20th percentile overall offensive efficiency, just shutting them down on 3rd and 4th down. And this was just the worst game of Purdy's career so far, by far. I'm not counting the Eagles playoff game that he got knocked out of. And it happens. I don't think it's like a referendum on who Purdy is. And it's like, oh, if he doesn't have his weapons and he's on the road and he's placing a good defense, he can't be good. Well, it happens to everybody sometimes that they don't play well. And even at, negative 0.22 EPA per play, it isn't god awful. I mean, it's bad. Negative 14% CPOE. That's pretty bad. Couldn't complete any passes there. But he didn't have a ton of mistakes. He just couldn't generate anything in the down-by-down basis. I mean, negative EPA, even if you take out the interception pass attempt. So that's not good. Prior to this, though, so he lost 8 expected points in this game overall. Prior to this, Purdy only had one other game with negative expected points lost. One other game with expected points lost, and that was only 0.3 in Week 7 last year against the Chiefs. So this is like by far, 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 far and away Purdy's worst game. Obviously, first regular season loss also with Purdy as a starter. Now, if Deshaun Watson can't come back, and I guess the word is he will come back next week, I don't know. I mean, I know PJ Walker won this game and they're not going to move away from him. And I know Dorial Thompson-Robinson DTR looked awful, awful, awful last week, but he looked okay in the preseason. And I don't know, like PJ Walker's not giving you much anyway, even though he got this victory. I mean, he was negative 0.36 EPA per play. Just bad. Really, really, really bad in this one. I mean, tough matchup, but tough weather, but still really, 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 really bad. Okay. Cincinnati, Seattle, like a slog of a game here. I mean, teams were better from a success rate standpoint than the final score of 17-13 to the Bengals. I had it being basically a flat game between the two teams. The Bengals are just passing a ton, but not throwing the ball down the field. 22.4% over expectation, their pass rate in this game. They continue to lean into that. And I mean, I guess if they can't run the ball and they had a 55% success rate passing the ball, it's okay. But, they're just so low upside sometimes in this passing game that when you have a interception, then it's tough to have much value, have a ton of value in this particular game. If you have an interception, if you take some sacks like Burrow does, then, it's not going great. Now, the The Seahawks were down most of the time, so Geno Smith had 52 plays that he was involved in here, dropbacks that he was involved in, so he had a lot there. Geno, do we got to start talking about Geno? I mean, it's not a greatest game on the road against the Bengals, but, I'm a bit of a Geno skeptic versus some others, and I don't think he gets a pass, but he throws like a few really good balls every game, and people get excited about that. But then he takes bad sacks. He took a sack on 4th and 6 here. He makes mistakes. He threw a couple of interceptions, which were the most impactful play of the games. His sack and his 2 interceptions were just like massive win probability losses in this game when they were happening. The 2 interceptions happened on 2nd down, so it wasn't like he needed to force anything there. And he had negative EPA in this game. But he has a great CPOE. He's like Mr. CPOE over results. And I think CPOE kind of aligns with perception and PFF grading and things like that a bit more than the like base truth, which is closer to the EPA per play on this one. I said he ranked 19th in EPA per play. That was at the time. Let me see. I just tweeted it out where he belongs on here. So Geno Smith is now, still 19th. 19th in EPA per play this year, okay? But that's equal to Derek Carr, only very, very slightly better than Sam Howell, worse than Jordan Love, worse than Russell Wilson, worse than Jimmy Garoppolo, worse than Kirk Cousins, worse than, a bunch of people, obviously, for that low in the standings. So, I don't know. Has like Geno earned that much credit to say like, oh, this guy's a top 10, top 12 passer as I've seen him ranked in some places? I don't know. I don't know. He's got good weapons too, right? I mean, maybe not the greatest blocking, but he's got decent weapons there also. All right. Let's get to the next. How about the Bengals lodge a win, but bad game for Joe Burrow. So I thought maybe at 50-1, he was a decent MVP bet. I mean, they're going to need wins. So we'll take the win there, but he's also going to need to start performing. But with Mahomes and Allen not being great, maybe he has a chance to sneak back into the conversation. And Purdy, a really, really bad game. Tua, like good game, but I don't know. I think we're more and more leaning towards not giving Tua too much credit here. So yeah, we'll see how it all plays out there. Texans, Saints. 2013 Texans, my adjusted score, this is a big flip, goes over to 27-22 Saints. So again, a lot of games this week, that's the case, where it flips in the adjusted score. Saints had a higher success rate, but they just lost incremental points in a lot of different areas, especially 8.4 points advantage in special teams and penalties for the Texans. That's a big one. They also had a slight turnover advantage, a slight 4th down conversion EPA advantage. So you add all that up, it was a big deal. The Saints lost 5.6 expected points on 2 4th down tries. So if they make one of those 4th down tries, you flip in some coins here, you make one of them, maybe not the one to end the game, but they had a 4th and 4 to Alvin Kamara, past Alvin Kamara, that they did not convert. They only got 2 yards on that one. That was huge. 15% win probability on that one play alone that they went down. Texans were like, okay, in this one. And they even benefited from luck that doesn't show up in my numbers, in the fact that CJ Stroud threw his first interception and it was promptly fumbled on the return back to the Texans. So that looked like I think it was like a slightly positive play because they start over 1st and 10 with the ball. Whereas obviously it was a negative play and kind of an unlucky thing to happen, to fumble the return. I mean, you make your own luck, but I'm going to call that slightly unlucky there. And Stroud was like, okay, in this game. He's moved up. I think he's close to the top 10 now in efficiency, if not in the top 10 so far this year. But his CPOE was negative 10%. Again, he had this interception that didn't really hurt his numbers, but should have hurt his numbers. So I think this was like a meh sort of game for Stroud. Not the greatest game. He continues to look like the best rookie, though, for sure, so far. Just the win and his numbers are misrepresenting, in my opinion, a bit like how well he actually played in this game. Whereas I thought Derek Carr had a pretty good game, just could not convert those 4th downs. That massively crushed his numbers there. They had the ball a lot more. They averaged more yards per play, all that sort of stuff, but couldn't get the win. So I still like the Saints as the best team pretty clearly in the NFC South, but this would have been a nice win for them to rack up here. Houston creeping in the AFC South, though. Let's see, where are we at now? 3-3, tied with the Colts. The Jags are 4-2. So, yeah, they have a better point differential, though, than the Jags so far, though. So that'll be interesting. I think they'll trail off before the end of the year, but we'll end up seeing on that one. Okay. Let me make sure I'm not missing any of the questions here from. No, I think the questions are related to games I haven't covered yet. Okay. Bears versus Vikings. This is one where, I don't know, you might have to toss the adjusted scores out the window because it actually says the Bears were the better team by 3 points. But a lot of that's based on just incredible turnover value lost. And maybe when you have to unexpectedly play your UDFA quarterback, that happens. Okay, that happens. I mean, but then again, Justin Fields kind of stunk before that happened anyway. So they had a better success rate than the Vikings, but big turnovers in this one, which drove down their passing percentile down to less than the first percentile. They did run the ball pretty well, though. So they did have that going for them. If you look at just 2 plays, so for the backup, when Tyson Bagent, I didn't even listen to it, so I'm not sure how his name is pronounced, but I know he played pretty well during the preseason. So I don't know if you can really do accumulate win probability loss or combine it, because it could be hundreds of percents of win probability loss theoretically on multiple plays because of how it goes back and forth. But anyway, his 2 plays were pretty bad. So he comes in, I think it was his first play. They're down by 6 points in the third quarter, 1st and 10, 7 minutes to go. Sack, scramble, sack, fumble, return for a touchdown. 10 points, 10 expected points lost, about 25% win probability down the drain. Then, they do a little something on offense. Both teams score a touchdown. It's 19-13, 1st and 10, 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, pick, 25% win probability down the drain there, 5 expected points lost. So not good. Now, Fields also had an interception in this game. Cousins did have a fumble, so that's something that plays off against it a bit. And the Bears also failed on another fourth down try in the middle of the third quarter, which is a 4th and 3. So a makeable sort of fourth down that they didn't end up accomplishing there. Let me look at the numbers. Just bad across the board. Kirk Cousins was kind of bad. Fields was really bad. And then Tyson Bagent, at least by the numbers, was awful. Though he was the best when it comes to if you ignore the negatives, which were incredibly huge. 15 EPA lost on sacks, fumbles, and interceptions, and only 18 dropbacks. If you ignore that, he actually was the best when the ball left his hands, is being able to actually do something. So he had that going for him. Fields, a really ugly game here because he couldn't even really complete passes. And he had some turnovers and some other stuff going on. Vikings probably don't need to be winning games here, but what are you going to do? You're stuck. You're stuck with Cousins. You're not trading him. You're trying to accomplish something. And then off season, they're going to really have to figure out what they're going to do. Maybe even bring him back. I don't know if they're not in position to draft someone, because they've been a decent team this year. Just luck has really gone up against them so far. It's pronounced like agent. So Pagent. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's go to Jacksonville versus Indianapolis. Another game where it was a 17-point commanding win. The adjusted differential is a little bit thinner at 5 points, mostly because of the turnover advantage. The Jags offense wasn't great, but they got 3 50-ish sort of field goals without a miss. They got a 53-yard kick return. And in their 7 scoring drives, which, let's give them credit. They have 7 scoring drives. They only averaged 33 yards gained on those scoring drives. So they had 12 possessions when you don't even include the end of the half possessions. So they had a lot of opportunity there. They didn't have to go very far on offense. They made all their field goals. They got a big kick return. All those things kind of swirl together to give them a 25-point adjusted score versus a 37-point actual score for the Jaguars. People probably have too strong of a good impression of the Jaguars offense coming out of this game because we see the scoring and we don't necessarily see as much what was leading up to it. Just something to keep in mind on this one. They won the game. They won it, fairly substantially, but not nearly as much as what the score may indicate. So we'll keep an eye out on that one. Also, two of the biggest EPA gains when it came to the Jags, the touchdown to Christian Kirk, and then the other positive play as far as a 3-point EPA game, a touchdown to the tight end Strange. Those were a combined 1.6 win probability gains because they were up by so much so early in this one. I mean, whatever, it happened. We'll give them credit for it, but they weren't the most impactful plays of the game there too. Minshew was kind of bad, negative 0.2 EPA per play, so not good for him. Just huge mistakes. 22 expected points lost to interception, sacks, and fumbles. Not good. And then the Jags protected the ball okay, other than an interception really for Lawrence when he was targeting Christian Kirk. Let me see. I think they did take some sacks though, so that was something that held them down on some of these plays and held down also Lawrence's EPA. Yeah, 3 sacks for 33 yards. So it's pretty substantial there. So Lawrence kind of had like an average-ish game by the numbers, but I don't think that's what's going to come out. I think people are going to have a much better impression. They're going to see the 37 points scored and not realize how many possessions they had and how favorable a field position they had on those possessions. So Lawrence, again, not going to look good by EPA. He'll probably be a top 5 guy in PFF grading, per usual. The last of the early window games, Dolphins, Panthers. Strange game. 14-0 Panthers. They're all high-fiving. They're feeling good. They're on the road. They're 13.5-point underdogs going into this. I kind of like them as 13.5-point underdogs. Didn't cover because they lose by 3 touchdowns here. And then the avalanche just starts. So the Panthers got a pick 6. They pick 6 Mike White in the second half, so they got another touchdown to bring it up to 21 points. But other than that, it was 42. It was basically 42-0 offensive scoring in one direction after the 14-0 start for the Panthers. That really explains everything. 3rd and 4th downs were huge. I mean, the Panthers just could not convert on 3rd and 4th down. There is a 16-point advantage for the Dolphins, who also made a lot of big plays on 3rd down. Yeah, that's like despite the fact that the Dolphins had a 16-point differential on 3rd and 4th down. And that includes losing 9 expected points on a 3rd and 10 with that pick 6. So what else did they do on 3rd down? Well, on 3rd and 6, they got a 41-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill. On 3rd and 9 from the 9-yard line, they got a rushing touchdown. I'm not sure how you even give up a rushing touchdown in that situation, but they did. And then Bryce Young failed to convert a 4th and 10. Failed to convert a 4th and 2. So that's, those have major negative impact on these different plays and these different games for this game, bringing down Bryce Young. I didn't think Bryce Young looked that bad, although he's going to still be in the bottom 5 for quarterback efficiency. He lost a 1/4 point per play in this one. And, it's not just mistakes. He's just not able to derive that much outside of that. But maybe there'll be some primacy sort of bias where we saw him look good when they were on red zone early in the game. So people will have a somewhat positive impression of him coming out of this, but not great. Tua, massive efficiency. He's right up there now with Brock Purdy, but only 33 plays. He got subbed out. Didn't have to do a whole lot. Obviously, he has Tyreek Hill and everyone else there, but 0 mistakes. So that's also good for juicing your efficiency when you have no interceptions, no sacks taken in the game. All right, let's get to the late window of 4 games here. We'll start with Raiders Patriots, maybe the game people cared about the least. Another flip score by the adjusted scores. Raiders 4-point win, but they look 4 points worse according to the adjusted score. Amazingly, the Patriots did not have a turnover disadvantage, which they normally have, but they did have a 3rd and 4th down disadvantage. They were much more successful on a play-by-play basis, but not good not good when it came to what they were able to do on late downs. A little bit of special teams advantage for the Raiders, but not much. So if you look at the Patriots and Mac Jones, they did have the most impactful play of the game, being a bad interception, 5.2 expected points lost, 15% win probability loss. But Garoppolo also had an interception the other way. Garoppolo, like his Achilles heel has been the picks. He's normally bad at picks, but he's been really, really bad this year. I didn't watch this one, but the commentary on it was that it wasn't like necessarily all his fault, but it's a big one. It was a 5 expected points lost on this one, and it continues to hold down his efficiency so far this year. He left the game, Garoppolo, with a back injury, had to go to the hospital for some sort of precautionary measure. So, his injury woes are continuing this year. But Hoyer came in, made some big plays, made no mistakes, and kind of led them to victory in this one. Now, Garoppolo, 0 sacks for him too. So 0 sacks taken by the Raiders, which Patriots defense, come on, let's do something here. And the Raiders couldn't run the ball at all either. So it was a weird one. If you look at Garoppolo on the season, if you take out his interceptions, right, which are massive, but he's had some bad luck with those interceptions so far this year. He actually ranks 3rd in his efficiency behind Brock Purdy and Tua. Hey, I know people don't like any of these quarterbacks as far as being great quarterbacks, but hey, when the ball leaves their hands and is not being picked, they're doing pretty well this year. Jones, he might not be the worst problem for the Patriots, but now they're 1-5, and he's probably the easiest thing for them to do is to replace him and bring in someone else, even though I don't have a lot of faith in anyone else that they have here to potentially bring in. I guess now, like Bailey Zappi is out as far as being the backup, and Malik Cunningham may be in. It looks like he did have a drop back in this one. He took a 5-yard sack. So I don't know. Are they going to turn to Cunningham? I don't know much about him, honestly, other than the fact that he's not Bailey Zappi. So he played for Louisville. He's 25 years old. So he's an old dude. I don't know. Couldn't hurt, I guess, even if it's not really raising your chances of winning, but you need like a Hail Mary sort of upside situation here for the Patriots to have any chance to do anything this season. I don't think they're like tanking this season, even though everyone will say tank for every team that's doing this poorly. I don't think Belichick's in the tanking business. So maybe they bring in Cunningham, see what happens. If he's maybe they got something and you can keep him out there, or if they don't have anything, then he'll help you in your efforts to get a top pick. Okay, Rams Cardinals, kind of boring game here. 17-point win for the Rams, 26-9, 9-point differential. So I say the Cardinals were a little bit better than a 9-point team in this one. Turnovers were a problem for the Cardinals. Josh Jobs is kind of falling apart. The glass slipper is off, or whatever the Cinderella analogy is here. The pumpkin, the carriage has become back into a pumpkin or whatever for Dobbs. I mean, he's always been like a serviceable quarterback, but I don't think we should have expected him to continue to play at the level that he was playing the first few weeks. Kyren Williams, kind of the story of this game for the Rams. 158 yards rushing. The Rams had 177 yards on 27 carries for their running backs in this one. It was weird. The Rams were actually down at halftime, 6-9. I didn't watch this game in great detail because I was writing up their early games while this was going on. But obviously, they put it on them along with interceptions in the second half. So Dobbs had 2 critically bad plays, a fumble loss for 5.5 EPA, and then an interception at 5.9. Boom. That just crushes you. Failed to convert a 4th and 5 also on the Rams side of the field. That hurts. So that brought Dobbs down to negative 0.3 EPA per play, negative 10% CPOE. So just a bad game for Dobbs, but not totally unexpected. Stafford was okay. Stafford continues to play like top 10-ish sort of quarterback, and that'll be enough to get it done in these sorts of matchups. But they're going to have to put a little bit more together if they want to seriously compete for anything going forward. And if you look at the standings right now, where do we got the Rams? The Rams are 3-3. So half a game behind the Seahawks at 3-2, obviously still behind the 49ers, but solidly in that kind of wild card mix. I'm interested to see if they can get there. 21 point differential So they look a lot better than the Falcons, who are also 3-3. The Commanders are also 3-3. They look a lot better than those teams. So if I were going to look at like who deserves wild card spots here, I would put them in the category as a team deserving a wild card spot. I might even put them behind. Okay, so let's say if the Cowboys were a wild card team behind the Eagles, I'd probably put them next. So like they should be that's kind of like second wild card sort of team by how good they are. And I'm saying they're better than the Falcons and better than the Bucks, even the Bucks who are 3-2. And then assuming the Saints win that division, I would like to see no one else make the playoffs from that division. And then the wild cards, I think by team strength should be the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and I mean there's the Cowboys, the Rams, and the Seahawks are left on that one. Maybe the Vikings if they can come through and do well. They're playing well this year, probably better than the Seahawks in some ways. Okay, Jets Philly. Marquee game so far. But again, it's a flip score. We got a bunch of flip scores in here, which happens when these defenses play well, but their offenses stink it up. So they win by 6. It was a 4-point differential by the adjusted score. Massive turnover advantage. Bad game from mistake-wise for Jalen Hurts. I mean, his interception targeting Dallas Goedert with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter lost 51% win probability. 5.4 expected points. Another interception targeting Devontae Smith in the fourth quarter with almost the entire fourth quarter left to go. But on 1st and 10, that's when it becomes a problem. 22% win probability loss there. 5 points lost. Swift now. 1st and 10 fumble. Remember, these 1st and 10 fumbles are absolutely killer. 4.7 EPA lost. And then another interception. I wasn't watching this in great detail. At least it was 3rd and 8. But still, another interception for Jalen Hurts. So those 3 INTs and that fumble, man, the fact that this game was even close kind of shows you fundamentally like how crappy the Jets offense is, even though Zach Wilson's going to be like, oh, Zach Wilson won another game and he was good against Kansas City. No, he stinks. Okay. At least he didn't turn the ball over, I guess. So that's what we have going for him. But he took 5 sacks. So he still got negative 7.4 EPA on those 5 sacks. It's not like he wasn't doing negative stuff. He didn't generate any pass EPA when he wasn't sacked. So, like, this is like the ceiling for Zach Wilson against a good defense is to be negative 0.17 EPA per play. Not good. Hurts, he continues to offset like the negatives. Like it was one of his worst games as far as all these different negatives are concerned. But because he has they are generating value in the air. 10 expected points on passes that were not intercepted. And then also 6.3 expected points on scrambles and rushing attempts. You have those 2 things. You could be really, really bad in other areas and still get by. They almost did it this week against a tough Jets defense, but it didn't end up happening. I think fundamentally this Jets defense was kind of a worse performance than what the numbers say because so much of it was based on turnovers. Good performance by the Jets defense, but without cornerbacks they were missing and others, maybe not as great as people are going to label it coming out of this. I think the Browns defense was better, basically, in this one. Actually, so last game, is it the last game? It is the last game. Tampa Bay versus Detroit. So another Cinderella situation, the pumpkin carriage reversal deal here for the Bucks. They hadn't been as good as their record so far this year. They had been converting a ton more 3rd downs than they should have, which is always a fluky-ish sort of thing that has a chance to reverse. And it reversed in a huge way this game. 2 of 12 on 3rd down. The Lions go 9 of 16 on 3rd down, including a bunch of big plays. It was about a 20-point differential just on those 3rd downs that we're talking about here. And the Lions had a turnover advantage. And, they were definitely more successful, 10% more successful on a play-by-play basis on this one. The Bucks were a little bit better than 6 points, but, not a whole lot better. All right, Jameson Williams got into the action, registering a big play. And I don't know, man, this offense for the Lions, good offensive line. Yeah, they set on fire early first round pick on a running back that they don't need, but whatever. It doesn't matter. They had a bunch of first round picks before. They got Jared Goff for free, right? Plus extra picks, plus less money than you probably have to pay Stafford. So they have that. And they hit on some other guys, and they kind of already had that offensive line core in some ways. So you got Jameson Williams in there. If he can start to do something down the field, 45-yard touchdown here in this game. If he can do something down the field, and Jared Goff can sling it, he can throw down the field. If he can start to do something there, then you have him. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown underneath. You have Sam Laporta at tight end. That's a pretty lethal 1-2-3 combination, I think, when it comes to the Lions' passing offense. And Jared Goff and who everyone thinks is some brilliant play caller, and Ben Johnson. Maybe he is. I don't know. You combine all that together, good offensive line. Defense is playing a bit better. Man, this Lions team is frisky. Very, very, very frisky. 5-1, 55-point differential so far this year. Beaten some good teams too. Not like, it hasn't been like total walkovers when it comes to the schedule. Barely lost to the Seahawks, right? Well, I mean, whatever. The Packers, Panthers, and Falcons isn't the greatest, but still, and Bucks isn't the greatest run there. But to go 4-0 is good. And then, of course, beating the Chiefs in week 1. Extremely frisky here for the Lions this year. And, Goff was the pick. And I'll give props here to Matthew Freeman from Betting Life, the Fantasy Life affiliate there, when we talked MVP, and he liked Jared Goff as a dark horse MVP candidate. I said Joe Burrow because I didn't think Goff would ever get the respect, but I don't know, man. I mean, 0.4 EPA per play in this one. He is now in the top 5 in EPA per play this season. And I think he looks good, right? He looks good. He's making good throws. Everything is coming together on this offense. He's not being overused also. They're also running it a decent amount. I know David Montgomery is out. We'll see how that affects them. I don't know if it's a huge effect on them. Jahmyr Gibbs, we'll see how he's used, but I don't know if they even need him to be successful this season. He's avoiding mistakes, which he's been doing most of the year outside of a couple of interceptions. So, yeah, I don't know. They're 5-1, tied for the best record in the NFL. So, if Brock Purdy is going to get MVP hype with now efficiency that's not that different from Jared Goff, and both teams are going to have a similar record, I don't know. The Lions defense is definitely worse than the 49ers defense. Can you argue the Lions skill position players are better than the 49ers skill position players? No. Offensive line, So we'll see. I mean, again, if Mahomes and Allen continue to stumble, they're getting wins though, so they're not stumbling that much, but they're not playing well. Tua, he'll throw up a stinker every now and again. And then Purdy kind of falling off. I don't know. Maybe Jared Goff could sneak in there. I mean, wilder things have happened, I guess. It's definitely a huge step forward, though, for his MVP campaign this week, with Allen and Mahomes being bad and Purdy being awful as the EPA leader right now. All right, let's get into some of these questions. If we have any Q&A, if you want to throw up any more on here, go ahead. I'll see if I missed anything in the specific games, and then we'll get out of here since we've already gone over an hour. Okay, well, I kind of addressed this a second ago. How far away are the Lions from being in the top tier of teams? What more would they need to show to get there? I mean, they're close. The thing is, there's going to be a pretty massive shift here when it comes to my priors going into the season, how much are in my numbers versus what we've seen this season. I think based upon what we've seen this season, the Lions are going to be pretty close to getting into that top tier. I still think the 49ers, Bills, and Dolphins are going to be basically the top tier after this week. I know it seems weird with the Bills looking really bad in an island game, but, it happens. Detroit should probably be next. So they're getting close. I still think we need another week or two to see it, but close. I need a little bit more faith in the defense also, because again, this hasn't been the most difficult defensive tests. They held down Patrick Mahomes, who's kind of been meh, this year. They got throttled somewhat by the Seahawks, and then they held down the Falcons, Packers, Panthers, Bucks, but those are just all might be bad offenses. So I'm still waiting definitely to see something from the defense against a good like quarterback, another game against a good quarterback to see what they can do. All right, Q&A here. If you're facing a 4-point deficit in the fourth quarter, in what scenarios make sense to kick a field goal, if any? They make sense if the fourth down conversion rate is really, really, really low. So if you have to convert, I don't know what it would be. Of course, it depends on how much time is remaining, right? Like, if you have enough time to get the ball back, that boosts your, boosts the chances more. B, if you even have to go as far as a onside kick, that might be preferable if it's like a 4th and 25 or something like that, depending upon who your quarterback and your passing offense is. But that's probably going to be the biggest lever in this one. Time remaining, obviously. And then once you get to fourth down, how far? How far is the fourth down conversion? That's what people probably don't weigh enough in their calculus. They just see the score. They say, oh, team's got to score. We need a touchdown here. 3 points isn't going to do anything for us. But if you have a fourth down that's hard enough to convert, then it can flip, and maybe you even do want a field goal and try to stop the other team or try to go for the onside kick if the fourth down is long enough. Remember, it's like Padgett. So Badgett looked pretty good aside from 2 terrible plays. Do you think this is lack of film on him, or is he actually a better quarterback than Fields? I don't know. I think it's just lack of. Well, he could be better than Fields. I don't think Fields is good, so that's always possible. But he's a UDFA, so we'll see. We'll see. I don't think lack of film really matters that much, honestly, at this point. I think it's more low sample size against the Vikings defense. That's do we finally see Will Levis? Yeah, I think I went over this one. I think we do. I think it would be crazy if they didn't go to Levis because Tannehill's injured. I guess did I even mention the fact that Tannehill was injured in the thing? I probably did, but so he's probably injured. They're going into their bye. Plenty of time to ramp him up. Willis is just not it. I mean, he's had a couple of flashes, but man, he just looks lost going back when he goes back to pass. I'd be curious to see how the Bears center graded out, and neither one could snap the ball. Didn't watch the game in that much details. So, Bagent, not Badgett. Sorry, Agent, Bagent. Whatever. I'll get it right someday. What do you think home field advantage is worth this year, team specific or general number for all teams? I mean, I do it. I think I may have mentioned this on the podcast at the end of the week. I do it somewhere between 0.8 and 1.2 or 1.4 in extreme circumstances, points per game, depending upon the team. It is dependent upon travel and field, but not a ton. What's hard to judge, and maybe if a team was actually doing a good enough job on this, that there might be like a specific away team disadvantage that should be calculated. We spend a lot of time figuring out the home field advantage, but I do think certain teams are better as far as how they prepare and travel and all that sort of things. A big one being what we saw with this London game, right? With the Ravens getting out there early and being smart and getting out there early as opposed to what the Titans were doing. I think that's maybe that's an analytical place to look at for some teams, is away team disadvantage, team specific, instead of just looking at, the metrics like how far you have to distance traveled and all that sort of stuff. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back on Friday. The Sunday night write-up is free, so go ahead and check that out. See what you're missing. Subscribe, unexpectedpoints.substack.com. I always appreciate everyone who is subscribed there. We're moving up. I think we're in the top 35 or something like that. Substacks, sports Substacks right now. Hopefully continue to move in that direction. I appreciate all the support from everyone out there. Shoot me a note, respond to an email if you have any particular questions or concerns about anything, or follow me on Twitter at Kevin Cole in the dreaded _ after Kevin Cole there. Still haven't figured out what to put in there. Can't put NFL there. Otherwise, everyone, enjoy Monday Night Football, and I'll be talking at you on Friday morning. Thanks so much.